I'm sure you've noticed the passage that we'll be studying today is a little bit longer than typical. Several people, as I was coming in, said, "Boy, you got your work cut out for you today." But the situation is such that there just wasn't a convenient place to break the narrative. So I hope you can bear with us as we go through the entire 9th chapter of John. John's gospel is organized around a series of miracles that are signs of Jesus' lordship. And this particular miracle, the healing of a blind man, fits in with John's theme of Jesus as the light of the world. The accounts of the miracles in John are usually accompanied by controversy about whether the miracle is a true miracle or whether it's appropriate under the Mosaic law to do what Jesus has done. The disciples' first question here probably strikes us as strange. Who sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born blind? But at that time, it was common to blame an illness or a handicap in a child on the parents. There are several passages in the Old Testament that mention the sins of the parents being visited on the children. Some rabbis even taught that it was possible for a child to sin while still in the womb. What appears to be a miracle is always a cause of consternation. In the ancient world, where people had no understanding of scientific causation, they could believe more easily in a deity just jumping into human affairs. Rulers sometimes took advantage of that gullibility. The Emperor Vespasian, who ruled Rome right around this time, was credited with making a lame man walk and restoring a blind man's sight. Our historical sources are quite blunt. The stories were false, but Vespasian encouraged the circulation. Today, with our rational approach to everything, we mistrust something that appears not to obey scientific laws. The Pharisees were afraid of anything that appeared to violate Mosaic law. That formed their framework for understanding the world. And we'll see a division in this passage. Some of the Pharisees say that Jesus can't be from God because he's violated the Sabbath. And others are afraid that he might be from God because he's done this miracle. But if someone sent from God violates Mosaic law, well, what does that say about the system that they've been living under? The way to settle the issue, of course, is to prove that no miracle has taken place. But the man and his parents stick to the simple fact. He was blind, now he can see. There's no arguing with that. So let's read this passage now as it appears in the bulletin. As he went along, he saw a man blind from birth. His disciples asked him, "Rabbi, who sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born blind?" "Neither this man nor his parents sinned," said Jesus, "but this happened so that the works of God might be displayed in him. As long as it is day, we must do the works of him who sent me. Night is coming when no one can work. While I am in the world, I am the light of the world." After saying this, he spit on the ground, made some mud with the saliva, and put it in the man's eyes. "Go," he told him, "wash in the pool of Siloam." This word means sent. So the man went and washed and came home seeing. His neighbors and those who had formerly seen him begging asked, "Isn't this the same man who used to sit and beg?" Some claimed that he was. Others said, "No, he only looks like him." But he himself insisted, "I am the man." "How then were your eyes opened?" they asked. He replied, "The man they call Jesus made some mud and put it on my eyes. He told me to go to Siloam and wash. So I went and washed, and then I could see." "Where is this man?" they asked him. "I don't know," he said. They brought to the Pharisees the man who had been blind. Now the day on which Jesus had made the mud and opened the man's eyes was a Sabbath. Therefore the Pharisees also asked him how he had received his sight. "He put mud on my eyes," the man replied, "and I washed, and now I see." Some of the Pharisees said, "This man is not from God, for he does not keep the Sabbath." But others asked, "How can a sinner perform such signs?" So they were divided. And then they turned again to the blind man. "What have you to say about him? It was your eyes he opened." The man replied, "He is a prophet." They still did not believe that he had been blind and had received his sight until they sent for the man's parents. "Is this your son?" they asked. "Is this the one you say was born blind? How is it that now he can see?" "We know he is our son," the parents answered, "and we know he was born blind. But how he can see now or who opened his eyes, we don't know. Ask him, he's of age, he will speak for himself." His parents said this because they were afraid of the Jewish leaders, who already had decided that anyone who acknowledged that Jesus was the Messiah would be put out of the synagogue. That was why his parents said, "He is of age, ask him." A second time they summoned the man who had been blind. "Give glory to God by telling the truth," they said. "We know this man is a sinner." He replied, "Whether he is a sinner or not, I don't know. One thing I do know, I was blind, but now I see." Then they asked him, "What did he do to you? How did he open your eyes?" He answered, "I've told you already, and you did not listen. Why do you want to hear it again? Do you want to become his disciples too?" And then they hurled insults at him and said, "You are this fellow's disciple. We are disciples of Moses. We know that God spoke to Moses, but as for this fellow, we don't even know where he comes from." The man answered, "Now that is remarkable. You don't know where he comes from, yet he opened my eyes. We know that God does not listen to sinners. He listens to the godly person who does his will. Nobody has ever heard of opening the eyes of a man born blind. If this man were not from God, he could do nothing." To this they replied, "You were steeped in sin at birth. How dare you lecture us?" And they threw him out. Jesus heard that they had thrown him out, and when he found him, he said, "Do you believe in the Son of Man?" "Who is he, sir?" the man asked. "Tell me so that I may believe in him." Jesus said, "You have now seen him. In fact, he is the one speaking with you." Then the man said, "Lord, I believe," and he worshipped him. Jesus said, "For judgment I have come into this world, so that the blind will see, and those who see will become blind." Some Pharisees who were with him heard him say this and asked, "What, are we blind too?" Jesus said, "If you were blind, you would not be guilty of sin. But now that you claim you can see, your guilt remains." This is the word of the Lord.